Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. Political reflections. This was happening simultaneously yesterday. Trump and Netanyahu were in the White House and Israel was striking Gaza. There has been no ceasefires. The IDF continues to pound Gaza all evening. President Trump, in one of his decree moments, signed a decree that the Golan Heights, was now part of Israel. The UN disavowed him of that notion and said it's clear that the Golan status has not changed. A UN Security Council resolution adopted in 1981 declared that Israel's decision to impose its laws, jurisdiction, and administration in the occupied Syrian Golan Heights is null and void. Carl Bildt said the jungle is back. This is a catastrophic departure from the very basis of international law. The Kremlin will applaud and apply the same principle to Crimea. Beijing will apply the same to the South China Sea. When I sat for my entrance exam for Westminster School, one of the questions that I was confronted with was this: might is right, discuss. And I think some of the uncertainty we're all experiencing is by watching the president of the free world seemingly torching the rules-based order, thumping his chest, and as Bildt tweeted, returning us to the jungle. Pepe Escobar, in his normal, inimitable style, has written a piece in Consortium News, Empire of Chaos, in Hybrid War Overdrive. Is this the age of anxiety, the age of stupidity, the age of hybrid war, or all of the above? Dick Cheney's global war on terror is back, metastasized as a hybrid mongrel. But GWOT would not be GWOT without a Wild West scarecrow. Enter Hamza bin Laden, son of Osama. $1 million bounty on his head. The Beltway intel community believes Hamza resides in the Afghan-Pakistan region. Remember, these are the same people who believed that Mullah Omar resided in Quetta, Baluchistan, when in fact he was safely ensconced only a few miles away from a massive US military base in Zabul, Afghanistan. A hefty case can be made that the Empire of Chaos currently has no allies. It's essentially surrounded by an assortment of vassals, puppets, and comprador fifth columnist elites, professing varied degrees of sometimes reluctant obedience. The Trump administration's foreign policy may be easily deconstructed as a crossover between The Sopranos and late-night comedy, as in the whole episode of designating State Department CIA regime change, lab experiment, random dude as president of Venezuela. Walter Benjamin would have called it the aestheticization of politics, turning politics into art. Then talking about the regime change in Venezuela has been unsuccessful so far, and referencing the case of Venezuela shows that all options on the table scenario has been de facto aborted by Russia, outlined in an astonishing briefing by Maria Zakharova, and then subsequently detailed by Sergei Lavrov, who said Russia keeps a close eye on brazen US attempts to create an artificial pretext for a military intervention in Venezuela. The actual implementation of these threats is pulling in military equipment and training US special forces. The US attempt at regime change in Venezuela has been so far unsuccessful. Plan A classic color revolution, has miserably failed. Plan B was a soft version of humanitarian imperialism with a resuscitation of R2P. It also failed. Plan C was a classic hybrid war technique, a cyber attack replete with a revival of Nitro Zeus, which shut down 80% of Venezuela's electricity. Plan D, try and starve the Venezuelan population to death. Plan E would be US military action. And Putin, who is viscerally opposed to regime change, has sent S-300s and some military into Caracas. October 2015, I spoke of Putin being a geopolitical grandmaster. He's now blocking regime change in the superpower's backyard. Putin has capitalized from the vacuum of American power more than Xi Jinping, Robert Amsterdam said to me in an interview. Venezuela military deploys S-300 missiles following Russian troop arrival. I take you back to October 2015, Ungar, where Putin set out his stall and said, "I cannot help asking those who have caused the situation, do you now realize what you've done?" And that really was the signal to a much more aggressive interventionist Russia. Of course, they intervened very soon after in Syria. Lavrov, who's very pithy, says if it looks like a terrorist, if it acts like a terrorist, if it walks like a terrorist, if it fights like a terrorist, it's a terrorist, right? I wrote previously that Maduro is, I'm afraid, going down, just like Muammar went down, and as did Saddam. I described the situation in Caracas as the edge. There is no honest way to explain it, because the only people who really know where it is are the ones who have gone over. I said then the Chavez revolution was always a rebellion in the superpower's backyard, and the machine was eventually going to bring it to heel by hook or by crook. President Xi Jinping was received by Emmanuel Macron in France. Emmanuel Macron, of course, has been trying to bed down and dampen the street, but I wrote about this when he was visiting and said in the 1990s, when I used to trade the French short end, I recall Prime Minister Alain Juppé, who similarly tried to reform and reshape the system, but met his match on the street. It was the iconic French philosopher Paul Virilio who said this about the street: the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and itself becomes a motor, machine of attack, in other words, a producer of speed. Therefore, I concluded it's easy to get excited about the French street, but it is an occupational hazard for any leader in the Élysée Palace, just like how Macron arm wrestled Trump to a standstill. Macron has to arm wrestle the street to establish himself. It's a rite of passage. Over the weekend, talking about the UK, I said the UK Parliament has dimmed 10 Downing Street's lights. And what I was referencing was that you can see a shift of power from 10 Downing Street into the House of Commons. And now we learn the UK Parliament seized control of the Brexit process from Prime Minister Theresa May and will now seek to decide how Britain exits the European Union. The idea is that by allowing MPs to vote simultaneously for as many options as they like, some of the game playing that has characterized Brexit votes so far will be avoided. And that was part of my article, which was "Ours is the most cryptic of centuries, its true nature a dark secret." Recently I was speaking with His Excellency Johann Borgstam, and he said, "Ali Khan, everything started with MH370. Sterling has been the best performing G7 currency year to date, but if the world goes to hell in a handbasket, then all bets will be on the yen." And then also in my article I was talking about this popping over the radar moment in Christchurch by Jacinda Ardern, an agnostic who took an oath of office without a Bible or mention of God, a living example that to be a humanitarian you need no dogma, just compassion, love, an open heart and an open mind. And I said she shattered the glass ceiling into tiny little pieces. She is the first Western leader to seek to assert narrative control over terror, the symbolism of a biker gang providing an escort to a hearse transporting a coffin of Haji Muhammad Dawood Nabi, killed in New Zealand's twin mosque attacks, to me sum things up metaphorically and even cryptically. She vowed never to utter the name of the twin mosque gunmen, and she warned social media companies, saying they are the publisher, not the postman. And I concluded by saying, if you want to measure a soft power leapfrog, keep an eye on the Kiwis and this remarkably sophisticated epitome of 21st century girl power. I said, let us not forget the egg boy either, who I'm now following on Twitter. Referencing that warning about social media companies being the publisher, not just the postman, the FT picked up on that. The social networks are publishers, not postmen. The terrorists of this month attacked 2 mosques in Christchurch, murdering 50 worshippers, live streamed a 17-minute video of the massacre. Within 24 hours, that video had been uploaded 1.5 million times on Facebook. It was also uploaded on YouTube at a rate of 1 video a second. Facebook and Google, the owner of YouTube, were quick to react once the attack had been flagged. Facebook blocked 1.2 million of those videos before they could be viewed and pulled down the rest. In New Zealand, the public censor declared the attacker's video officially objectionable, meaning that anyone uploading it could be jailed. The police have already begun making arrests. And then the article asked, was Google right, for example, to allow videos of Saddam Hussein's hanging because the company considered it a historic event? Was Facebook right to block the account of Ilma Gore after her painting of a naked, merely endowed Donald Trump was shared more than 50 million times? They have utterly failed on that job and did not realize that it was a two-way contract. Their services have been weaponized by bad people. They need to put on their big boy pants and behave responsibly. I've been saying the same thing for a while.